The rain didn't just fall that night, it roared. It drummed against the cracked sidewalks, hissed in the gutters, and blurred the city lights into trembling halos. Samir bent low against the wind, one arm clutching his daughter's small, shivering form, the other gripping the folded eviction notice so tightly it crumpled in his fist. The paper was already soaked, its ink bleeding into black smudges, but he didn't need to read it. He knew every word by heart. Final notice, vacate the premises within 7 days. They had nowhere to go. No savings. No family nearby. No one to call. Layla, only 8 years old, tried to keep pace with her father's hurried steps, her tiny sneakers splashing through the growing puddles. "Papa, slow down," she whimpered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "We're almost home," Samir replied, though the word home felt like a cruel joke now. When they turned down the narrow alley that led to their building, Samir's steps faltered. Under the flickering light of the lone street lamp, a man stood perfectly still, tall, lean, and soaked through to the bone. He wasn't seeking shelter. He wasn't hailing a cab. He was simply watching. Samir's instincts flared. He shifted Layla behind him and quickened his pace. But as they drew near, the man spoke, his voice low, almost lost to the rain. "You've been here before, haven't you?" Samir stopped. "What?" The man's gaze didn't waver. "This crossroads. This moment. You've been here before." A shiver ran down Samir's spine. He'd never seen this man before in his life, and yet, the stranger's words pierced something deep inside him, as if he knew the exhaustion in his bones, the quiet desperation he'd hidden from everyone, even from Layla. Before Samir could respond, the man reached into the folds of his soaked coat and pulled out a small leather notebook tied with a faded ribbon. The leather was worn smooth, the corners frayed. He held it out with both hands, almost reverently. "You're going to need this," he said. "It saved my life once. Maybe it will save yours." Samir hesitated. Rain dripped from his hair into his eyes, blurring the stranger's face. "Who are you?" But the man only pressed the notebook into Samir's palm. "Some things are better learned than told." And with that, he turned and walked away into the storm, disappearing down the alley before Samir could ask another word. Back in their cramped apartment, the rain tapping against the windows, Samir lit the kerosene lamp. The dim glow revealed the notebook's worn edges. Layla curled up beside him, curiosity sparking in her big brown eyes. "What's that, Papa?" "I don't know." He untied the ribbon and opened to the first page. "If you are reading this, you've already lost something. But you haven't lost everything. Not yet." The handwriting was neat but heavy, each letter pressed into the paper as if carved by emotion. As he flipped through, he realized the notebook was filled with letters, all addressed to Lily. The first half seemed to be from a father to his young daughter, describing ordinary days with extraordinary tenderness. "Today, Lily, you made me a paper crown. You said I was your king. But I am only your servant, little one. My life is yours." Samir felt his throat tighten. The words radiated a love so pure it was almost painful to read. But halfway through, the handwriting changed. It became rougher, shakier, and, it no longer addressed Lily directly. Instead, it spoke to the reader. "If this notebook has found you, follow its path. On the night you feel like giving up, go to the bench by the old clock tower. Bring nothing but hope." The instruction was simple, yet bizarre. Samir closed the book, frowning. The old clock tower was on the other side of the city, a relic from decades past. He told himself it was foolish, the ramblings of a man he didn't know. And yet, something in him stirred. The week dragged on. Samir's foreman cut his shifts at the factory. The landlord banged on their door, his threats echoing in the hallway. Layla tried to be brave, making little, welcome, signs for a home she didn't know they were about to lose. On the sixth night, Samir sat on the floor, head in his hands, staring at the unpaid bills. The eviction deadline was tomorrow. He had nothing left, no money, no options, no strength. And that's when the words came back to him: on the night you feel like giving up, go to the bench by the old clock tower. Bring nothing but hope. The streets were nearly empty when Samir arrived, Layla asleep in his arms under a blanket. The towering structure loomed above them, its hands frozen at midnight years ago. The bench sat beneath it, slick with rain. He set Layla down gently, her head resting on his lap, and waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Nothing. He felt like a fool. But just as he was about to leave, a shadow emerged from the far end of the square. A woman, her coat drawn tight against the wind, carrying a small lantern. She approached slowly, her eyes scanning his face like she was searching for something. "Samir?" she asked. He froze. "How do you know my name?" She knelt in front of him, her gaze moving to the sleeping child. "Because I've been waiting for you. For years." Her name was Miriam. She explained that the notebook once belonged to her brother, the man under the streetlight that night. Years ago, he had been a single father too, raising his little girl, Lily, after his wife died. But tragedy struck. Lily was diagnosed with a rare illness. He sold everything, worked himself to exhaustion, but still couldn't afford the surgery in time. Lily passed away at 8 years old, the same age as Layla. The grief nearly destroyed him. He began leaving copies of his notebook, filled with letters to Lily. In random places, hoping they would find people who needed them. He believed that even if he couldn't save his own child, maybe he could help save someone else's family, Miriam said softly. "But, why me?" Samir asked. She smiled faintly. "Because he saw the same look in your eyes that he once saw in his own reflection, the look of a man who loves his child more than his own life, but doesn't know how much longer he can keep going." Miriam handed him an envelope. Inside was a check, enough to cover months of rent. "My brother set aside a small fund from the donations people gave after Lily's passing," she explained. "He told me to give it to the right person when the time came. Tonight, that person is you." Samir's vision blurred. I can't accept this." "You can," Miriam said firmly. "Because one day, you'll be the stranger under the streetlight for someone else. And you'll know exactly what to do." Weeks later, life wasn't perfect, but it was livable. The rent was paid. Samir found steadier work. Layla laughed more. And on quiet nights, Samir would open the notebook and read aloud, not just to Layla, but to himself, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, kindness can find you. He never saw the man from that rainy night again. But sometimes, when he walked home in the rain, he would glance at a streetlight and imagine a tall, quiet figure watching over them. And one night, years later, Samir did stand under a streetlight, holding a worn leather notebook, waiting for another weary soul to pass by. Because kindness, like grief, is something that never really leaves you. But unlike grief, kindness can save you.